you cannot understand Bitcoin without understanding the problem it solves.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem it solves is a simple one. It's that no human being that has ever been granted access to a money printer has been able to resist the urge to use it.
Mm-hmm.
When someone can mint money, they will do it. And if you think about it, the dollar bill or whatever monetary bill was always born as a receipt for something.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they came into being. It was a receipt for a commodity in a vault somewhere, usually gold.
Yeah.
And if you cannot return the receipt for that same amount of gold, someone stole from you. There's no way around that. All inflation is theft.
All right, so today we have Knut Svanholm on the show. Knut, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
No problem. Good to be here. Good to see you.
So I'd love to get the show started. Well, it's called Bitcoin Journeys, but I think you have a pretty fascinating background and a pre-Bitcoin journey, let's call it. So I'd love to start a bit by you just describing a bit your pre-Bitcoin journey. So a bit of your background previous to encountering Bitcoin and kind of moments that you think are significant leading up to that, if that's not too broad of a question.
All right, that's a long. That's sort of begging for a rant here. I grew up on the Swedish countryside in just south of Lake Vänern, which is the biggest lake in Sweden. In the 80s, I was born in the mid 70s and grew up in the 80s, and spent a couple of months here and there, and a half year in Mozambique, and a couple of months in Tanzania, and some other places as well. We were traveling quite a lot when I was a kid, because my dad used to be a sea captain, and then he got some other gigs building a nautical school in Mozambique, and having some doing some other project in Tanzania. I don't remember what that was exactly, but what he was doing, that didn't interest me very much at the time. But he had an international career, so we traveled around quite a bit. I did my 12 years of Swedish public school, and then started studying electronics engineering, which I quit after a year because I was so tired of school, the school system. And instead I decided to sort of walk in my father's footsteps and become a sea captain, which is, in hindsight, wasn't something I really wanted. It's just more of a lack of imagination. But I did, my hobby at the time was sailing old boats, like 100-year-old boats, wooden boats. So I managed to get a job on a tall ship after the Merchant Marine Academy. So I did. Now I'm jumping ahead a bit here. I worked on some ships before that to get enough time to get my licenses and stuff, deck time to get my licenses and stuff, and to get into the Merchant Marine Academy. And I went to the Merchant Marine Academy, and my university degree is Master Mariner of all degrees you can have. My first job after the academy was as a second officer on a tall ship with high school students on board. And during these times, and I liked it, so I stayed for 8 years on the same ship. We were sailing around the northern Atlantic Ocean, and visited a whole bunch of countries. And
what was the job specifically?
Second officer. So I was the safety and navigational officer. Just doing my watches onshore and at sea, and taking care of the safety equipment on board and the fire equipment and whatnot. And also planning the routes. We spent 6 days in each port, and the schedule was supposed to be like watch day, which you're on watch for 24 hours, and then working day, and then a free day. But I managed to do all the things I had to do during my watch day, so I never had the working day. So I just, and usually I traded one of my watch days with one of the other officers or with a skipper, and just had 4 days to travel around and see whatever place I was in, which was one of the things that made me stay for so long on this ship. And I've never really been a materialist. I was more of that which you can do without your own type of person from the get-go.
Yeah.
Especially before I started a family. So I was fine with just having my guitar and my laptop and 10 sets of t-shirts and underwear and socks and 2 pairs of jeans and a pair of shoes and just traveling the globe, seeing what.
And the ship, was it?
Doing whatever I wanted.
Was it just in Scandinavia that it was sailing, or what was the route that you were doing?
So sometimes around the British Isles, and every year down the European west coast.
Okay,
and
wow.
Sometimes into the Mediterranean as well, but and sometimes depending on whether we did the British Isles thing or not. Later in the year, but sometimes into the Mediterranean and like Spanish south coast, French south coast. We went to Sardinia once.
Okay, cool.
And places like that. Or was it Sardinia? One of those islands, anyway. And other years, and then, every year down the African coast via Morocco to Cape Verde, sometimes the Canary Islands, and then crossing the Atlantic and sailed around the West Indies, sometimes Mexico, and up the U.S. Sometimes even further in. And one of the years, or 2 of the years, we went to Suriname, which is now, in hindsight, very interesting, since Maya Parbo is a presidential candidate there, a Bitcoin president. So I'm for that. If she becomes the president, I'm going to contact my old workplace again and say, like, I have a connection here for you. I think you should return to Suriname.
Amazing. Yeah, so I can imagine in that time, 8 years on that boat, I imagine you got to see a large part of the world, no?
Yeah, I did. Then again, most of the places we just went to the same place every year.
Yeah,
but
okay.
It always differed somewhat from year to year. Like, but Cuba, the U.S., Grenada, Colombia, Belize, Mexico, lots of places. Azores,
Yeah,
so
amazing.
So that was before Bitcoin, and I met my wife on the tall ship as well.
Cool.
We have 2 kids, and when we got the kids, I realized I can't be away for 2 months at a time. I need some job closer to home. And I got a job on small cruise as the skipper of small crew transfer vessels for wind farms.
Okay.
So I took technicians out to wind turbines in the North Sea and the Baltic for a couple of years, and then I ended up in the office for that shipping company. And my last fiat position was as the crewing manager for that shipping company, Swedish/Danish shipping company. So I had 250 employees to take care of there, which meant a lot of work.
Yeah.
And in parallel to that, I started writing the Bitcoin books. Like on the CTV, I started writing articles, and then books later on.
Cool.
And then I decided to quit because the books did well, and now I do Bitcoin stuff full time. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think one thing that stood out to me a bit in that discussion there and your history was, I think, a bit the non-conventional route. You said that you were going to first went to school for a technical degree, but you quickly became pretty jaded by school and traditional path, right? Is that something that you always kind of
jaded
had inherent?
Is a good word for it.
Yeah. Is that something that you always had a bit inherently in you, like a quick, I guess, boredom of the more traditional stuff?
Absolutely, and somewhat rebellious nature, and
Yeah.
like I didn't like doing what I was told to do. I like doing things my own way, and I
Yeah.
have a touch of ADD. I suspect, even though it wasn't invented when I grew up, and always questioning everything and being a pain in the ass to the teachers, you know.
Yeah.
And then again, also the social sciences never made sense to me, which is why I found it so fascinating to discover praxeology and Austrian economics later in life, where everything made sense because it was based on logic and not some
Yeah.
fucking opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I want to dive into that because I think, that, well, you need that kind of, I think, a bit of that mentality as well to really understand Bitcoin. But for you, before you discovered Bitcoin, let's say, did you have any, what was your experience as it relates to money? Was that something that you were actively thinking about, working on, let's say, like, or is it something that more by happen chance through kind of a survey of the world in general that you kind of started to stumble upon a bit more?
It's hard to remember how like my thoughts about money before Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I was not a gold bug or anything like that, and I don't think I reflected over it that much, because what intrigued me with Bitcoin was not the term money is one thing, but what really intrigued me was the concept of something in the realm of computers that couldn't be copied. Because it defeats the entire purpose of a computer. Everything is copyable. That's the nature of data.
Yeah.
And I knew that by heart because I grew up with the computer revolution. I had a Commodore 64 was my first computer, 64 kilobytes of memory, you know. So you had to program everything from scratch there, and it was like you could really tell how data worked and how computers worked from the very beginning. So to me, something that couldn't be copied really intrigued me, like a time machine would, if you will, because I thought that how can this be? How can there be something that cannot be copied on a computer? And it took me years to really wrap my head around what makes it uncopyable, and I've come to the conclusion that that the satoshis are not really on the computers at all; they're in your head. So yeah.
Let's dive into that a bit because I've actually never heard it described that way before. What do you mean by the satoshis are not on the computer; they're in your head?
So satoshis don't really exist. What exists is a number next to a UTXO, which represents how many units or satoshis you are able to move from that address if you hold the private key, right?
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, or for all practical, in all practicality, the ability to move the satoshi is the satoshi. Like without the ability to move them, they're nothing.
Right.
They're just a number.
Yeah.
So the ability to move them is the actual Bitcoin, right? And the ability to move them is a secret that a person keeps from all other people.
Right.
Like either the actual private key or the seed phrase or the location of a hardware wallet or the PIN code to something. All of that, all it is, the essence of that is just keeping a secret from your fellow man. So owning a Bitcoin is not really owning anything, or it's not even possessing anything. It's just keeping a secret. It's just the magic 12 words or the magic number that you keep secret from everyone else. That's all it is. Like that's the ownership. Which is also, by the way, what makes it so hard to steal, because it's, in a way, it's public. It's just a number. Numbers aren't. It's you can't prevent anyone else from knowing a number. So the only thing that makes you think that you own a Bitcoin is that you know that the probability that someone else has access to the same key as you do is so low that you practically own the thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you don't. It's just a number. So it's not really uncopyable. It's just the odds that someone has a copy are so low so that you practically own the thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I see where you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. I think it's a good way of I guess visualizing it as well. That well, I also always tell people, because I mean, Bitcoin inherently isn't a physical thing, right? You have physical quote
No,
unquote manifestations in maybe hardware wallets or other things like that, but Bitcoin inherently is digital.
no, and this is the typical boomer question, like, "Oh, well, you can't touch a Bitcoin." Well,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't touch most dollars either, but they
Yeah.
don't care about that. But the thing is, it goes so deep.
It does.
Yeah,
It,
and
yeah.
it's hard to wrap your head around it. It definitely is, because everything in it is not only informational, it's probabilistic. like
Yeah.
and the thing, even the absolute finite number slightly below 21 million, uh is also probabilistic. You believe that the probability that everyone in the network will unanimously think that it's a good idea to change that number is also infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
Like, the odds are
Right.
so low, so that you take it for granted that there will never be more than 21 million.
Yeah.
But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, that's also a probabilistic assumption.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and I think we could get very abstract here, and I think because it is, once you really start to think about it, you can get really abstract in terms of what defines actual ownership, and um,
Yeah, I think you have to, like,
you
to
do, yeah.
properly understand it. You have to go into the
Hmm.
abstract to an absurd level,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it is, which is, and this is what I find so fascinating about it, because if it's all abstraction,
Hmm.
then then it's all just a thought experiment. And
Hmm.
it's all just, we already had this in us. Like,
Yeah.
human beings were always capable of doing this. We
Hmm.
could have done it by calculating by hand. It would have taken a long time, and then, like, the hash rate wouldn't be very high. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, a computer is just a fancy abacus. It's not. It's just a tool to help us do the
Yeah.
calculation. But it's really the miner is not the ASIC; it's the owner of the ASIC, and
Right.
the node is not the node, the Raspberry Pi. It's the node runner.
Yeah.
It's the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's fascinating to talk about this, but I think for the purpose of the podcast, because I do want to keep it a bit, let's say, higher level for more beginners as well to enter Bitcoin and to understand it. And I think once you do start to get down the abstract, it can make it, especially for beginners, if you're not well versed in Bitcoin and technology and everything around it, it can make it very confusing very quick.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But it's also very unfortunate, because, like, uh, technical is one thing, but there's another aspect, like foundational or philosophical. I don't know how to even know how to
mm,
describe it, but I think you need this, to, because people shouldn't. Uh, th- this might sound like I'm sitting on some high horse here, but, like, I think the misinterpretations of what Bitcoin is sort of dangerous. If people
mm,
are in it without actually knowing what they're getting themselves into, like, that can lead to disaster. Like, and it
mhm.
leads to people losing their coins, and it leads to also, well, you can take that to its extreme. It leads to people falling for shitcoin scams. Of course it does.
Yeah.
And, like, but even if you, like, buy the wrong hardware wallet, you're in trouble. Like,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah. No,
so
I agree, and I do think education is super important in the world
yeah,
of Bitcoin, because I do think that there's a lot of um, complexity involved, and to understand the value proposition of Bitcoin, you also really need to understand Bitcoin. But I think, um, unfortunately, right now at least, that education level in the general um, populace, let's say, is still low about, well, the value proposition of Bitcoin in the first hand, but and then you still have the more technical sides to it, right? Which I'm sure, like
yeah,
for you, as for me, it's taken hundreds of hours to learn and study about it, because it is so complex, and it does really also require you to rethink a lot of
yeah, and
things, right?
reframe things, because this is, I'm not the most technical person, and I don't
Hmm.
think you need to go very technical, but you can use words to describe how you need to, like, rewire your brain to, in order to understand what this thing really is. And
Hmm.
and this notion of everything probabilistic, that's one aspect. Another one is that it's just an agreement on a fixed set of rules. So you cannot understand Bitcoin without understanding the problem it solves. And the problem it solves is a simple one. It's that no human being that has ever been granted access to a money printer has been able to resist the urge to use it. So everyone, when someone can mint money, they will do it. And if you think about it, the dollar bill or whatever monetary bill was always born as a receipt for something. That's how they came into being. It was a receipt for a commodity in a vault somewhere, usually gold.
Yeah.
And if you cannot return the receipt for that same amount of gold, someone stole from you. There's no way around that. All inflation is theft. It's not legit. Like it's it's not legal.
Yeah.
It might be lawful, but it's not legal. Like there's no ethics. It's always theft. So with Bitcoin, we have something. We have another, and in this sense, money is just an agreement, and we sort of agree that some theft is okay, or we think we do. Most people don't even think about the theft aspect of it. They think it's just a natural phenomenon that money has to inflate. But if you really think about it, like if you prefer a system that doesn't have to have theft baked into it, this is the only way. Like it's an agreement on a rule set that is completely different. And the reason we agree on this fixed set of rules is that they are more expensive to try to break than to just follow. Which enables, 21 million and censorship resistance and all the other beautiful stuff that we can build on top.
Yeah. No,
anyway,
I mean,
end of rant.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I agree with you, of course. I think, but obviously I agree with that. Inflation is theft, and inflation shouldn't be an assumed part of a monetary system. But I think for a lot of people, especially if you don't have an Austrian economics perspective, I had a discussion the other day with someone, and we were having this discussion where they inherently thought that money printing and government intervention in money supply is a necessary evil, and that inflation is not necessarily a bad thing. So, how do you, with someone who doesn't have maybe even an economic background, how do you explain that to someone that is not aware of how those systems really work?
It's hard because every economics class in every school in the fiat monetary system teaches a flawed version of economics because it needs to, because the public schools wouldn't exist if we were based on proper economics. No taxation and inflation would not be okay. Fortunately, the thinkers that have already thunk about this for years or for decades, almost 100 years now, or 100 years, I would say, depending on where you start counting, are available. You can read Mises, you can read Rothbard, you can read Hoppe, you can read Hayek, and all of the other Austrian thinkers, and it's very enlightening to do so. So if you want to really understand economic incentives and how the economy really works, and that there is an actual robust science around it that tells you very clearly what you can and more importantly, what you cannot know about an economy, and why you can't quantify anything, and that a value order is always ordinal and never cardinal, or and all sorts of things. A person always prefers something over another thing, and you can arrange that into a value hierarchy, but you cannot quantify how far in between the steps of the things a person wants are. So like money can never truly be a ruler. It's just an abstraction and an approximation of something. But what I would do to to Orange Pillar Normie, if you will, or to Austrian economics Pillar Normie, is ask very, very basic questions and see what answer they come up with. So the first one would be, like, if you practice doing something, do you usually get better or worse at that thing you're practicing?
Better.
You usually get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't all prices dropping forever? Because that should be the inevitable conclusion. If human beings get better at doing stuff, we get better at our jobs, which means better at producing and transporting and selling stuff to one another. So all prices ought to drop forever for everything. And they do if you measure in Bitcoin. They really do. Especially on if you zoom out a bit, you can see everything dropping in price in Bitcoin. And some other basic questions are just simple questions like, if they can print money, why do we pay taxes? Like simple stuff like that. Or and why is theft okay for some people and not for others? And why do people in the public sector pay taxes? If they're paid by taxes, why do they pay them? Isn't that just an unnecessary back and forth? And the only reason they do pay taxes is to keep up the facade that what they're doing is as valuable as what the private sector is doing. And it's simply not true. They're on life support. Like they're providing goods that no one asked for. And occasionally they might do a service or something that someone needs, like hospitals and stuff. Yes, sure. But still, your normal voter has no idea how much resources goes into the bureaucracy of these things and what we could have had instead. Because what we don't see, what we don't ever see, is all the exponential growth that could have happened, but was stopped in the process. So my favorite example of that is an apple tree farmer who has one apple tree, and he manages to sell all the apples at 100% profit, so he can afford another tree the next year, and two more trees the third year, and four more trees the fourth year, and so on and so on. So he can grow exponentially. But if he's taxed at 50%, he never gets to the second tree. So we don't see these exponential effects that could have happened, and that we see happening in truly free market societies. Like that's why we saw Hong Kong grew faster than every neighboring city, and then places like that. Well, that's why we saw Dubai go from a pile of nothing in the desert to like the place where rich people go nowadays. So like it's.
And I think there's a lot to unpack there again, but I think the main question that I have here, and I think it's a difficult one, but how do you, because Bitcoin is essentially the separation of money from state, right? You're taking the money printer out of the state's hands and saying we have a scarce. Go ahead if.
Which I'm just adding that the separation of money and state is the separation of everything and state in the end. It's the separation of you and the state.
Exactly, and that's my question a bit, is how do you then see the role, if any, of government? Because I agree that...
I don't.
Okay, well, let's go on.
I think we'd be better off without them.
But don't you need some type of, let's say, governing body to establish some type of order and... just curious, like a thought experiment. How do you then see that really extrapolate into society if we don't?
I've been wrestling with this thought for a long time, and so have the other Austrian thinkers. And Mises still believed in a minimal state, but Rothbard threw the entire idea of a state out the window. Because at the end of the day, a belief in that the state is necessary is the same as a belief that there are things in society that are better done under gun threat than voluntarily or with consent. And I don't believe that is true. I believe human beings are better off collaborating voluntarily and with consent than without. Like the state calling you a taxpayer is a bit like a rapist calling his victim a girlfriend. It's the same thing. And I believe if you have a community, for instance, you can still owners of property in that community can still collaborate and say that in order to save us from invading tribes or whatever, invading armies from other places in the world, we ought to have this and that much defense. And if a group of people voluntarily decide on what that number should be, how much of their income they should spend on defense, I think they'll make a better decision than the arbitrary decision that an entity that has itself gathered all its resources via gun threat makes, if that makes any sense. I don't believe that there are decisions for society that are better off just because there was a monopoly on violence in society. I think all and I hope that all that voluntary interactions between human beings are by their very nature better for humanity than involuntary ones.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That definitely voluntary interactions are better than of course involuntary interactions. Is that something that you see work at scale though? Because I do think we're living in a pretty connected, digital, big world, and I think I wonder if. Because I agree with you, but I wonder if that is realistic in today's world.
Not in my lifetime, but maybe 20 generations down the line, we can see something like that evolve into being. But definitely not in my lifetime. But what I think is true for every generation is that the correct fight to fight is to make the government smaller, no matter how small it is in the first place. I don't think we'll ever get rid of local monopolies on violence, but I think we can always strive to make that monopoly smaller. And
what do you mean by what do you mean by monopolies on violence?
That's what the state is. It's nothing but the winning mafia. Like whoever has the police force and the army has the monopoly on violence in that jurisdiction. So we live in Spain. Oh, docs. You can cut that out if we live in beep. Yeah. So Spain has an army. Spain has a police force. Spain has what's it called? Guardia Civil. And all sorts of stuff. Tax paid. So all of those things are paid for by stolen money that someone pointed a gun at the population and said, "Give me that money, or else we'll do something. We'll use all this monopoly on violence to take your freedoms away." So no one paid for that voluntarily. We paid for that under gun threat. I think most people would have paid for it voluntarily, and I think that would have been a better system. So I define the state as the entity that has the monopoly on violence in a certain geographical area. And that's a country, basically. It's some of your ancestors were more successful at being assholes to some other ancestors back in the day, and therefore we formed these countries. But at the end of the day, I think we would be better off if we were friendly to one another than unfriendly.
I get what you're saying, and I think, the way of explaining it there, I think, is very important, because I think the monopoly on violence is as you're saying, right? It's you're living in a certain country and you are forced to pay taxes. If you don't pay those taxes, you get fined, you get put in jail, whatever it may be. But the state has that control to make you pay those taxes, whether you want to or not. And what you're saying is that you believe if that were not the case, people would still pay maybe not traditional taxes, but they would pay something to a community to fund things like maybe
we do all the time. We have insurance policies, don't we? We pay for them. We do pay for collective stuff all the time. Like if I pay a bus ticket, that I'm paying something to a collective. Like all of these things function without any intervention, or there is intervention in everything because there's VAT and there's everyone else is taxed and stuff. So there's never been such a thing as a free market. But still, like what we're doing now is an exchange. It's
Right.
it's a value exchange. You find it
Mhm.
valuable to talk to me. I find it valuable to talk to you. Otherwise, we wouldn't talk to one another. So
Right.
everything human beings do that doesn't involve violence
Mhm.
is a trade.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we'd be better off if we did non-violent things than violent things, or
Right.
non-aggressive things, I should say. Like defense
Mhm.
is more than okay,
Mhm.
because you need to be able to defend yourself if someone is not playing by the rules.
Right.
But offense is never ethical. Like that's the non-aggression principle. That's what all of this philosophy is based around, and
Mhm.
and I truly believe in it. And I think I truly believe a responsible adult should try to pay as little taxes as possible,
Mhm.
always, because
Mhm.
what you're doing is feeding a beast that shouldn't be, that is a
Mhm.
destructive force. And you're
Mhm.
being brainwashed through state subsidized media, and state funded education. Like even the private schools have to follow the state approved school curricula.
Mhm.
So everything's fucking influenced by the state.
Mhm.
You're born into this ginormous propaganda machine that
Mhm.
has existed for thousands of years, and especially the last century with mass media and,
Mhm.
and the age of the internet. Like, well, the internet is the way out. Actually, the
Mhm.
internet provides us with tools where we can, like this thing, Riverside. We can instantly hop on a video call and have a deep conversation with one another, regardless
Yeah.
of where on the globe we are.
Yeah.
There are no borders on the internet. Like
Mhm.
the internet shows us how absurd the idea of national borders really is.
Mhm.
So whenever
Yeah.
you and I travel a lot, as you know, I go to all these conferences and do all this stuff, and I did
Mhm.
back in my sailing days as well. I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of borders, and I've seen a lot of like enforcements of different rule sets for different people, and I'm always like, the older I get, like the more I ask myself the same questions. Why don't the same rules apply to all people? Why do we
Mhm.
have a different rule set depending on where we were born and where we happen to be? Like, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Age
No,
old
but
question, but it's pretty fucking simple. And the way
yeah.
to do that is, introduce a system of value transfer, which they can't take away from you, which they can't do anything about. That's the way to world peace. The Bitcoin
Mhm.
fixes fucking everything.
Mhm.
Bitcoin is peace.
Mhm.
I truly believe that.
Yeah, well, likewise, and I think I mean I agree with what you're saying, and I think but I think it's such a radical. Well, no, I don't want to call it radical. It's such a different way of thinking because it's not like you said what we are taught when we're growing up, and what is still being taught by the state or by traditional media or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I
Um,
love that you use the word different instead of radical. Sorry for
yeah,
interrupting, but because it shouldn't be radical. It is
right, right,
radical,
right.
but only in an insane world is the sane
Yeah.
mind radical. You know.
Yeah, and I think the problem with today's world a bit as well is because I think um, the type of discussion that we're having right now, right, where we're talking about the state and the negative influence that it can have on people's lives and the monopoly on violence and all those things. When you don't really understand those concepts, I think thoroughly enough and understand that like how war is funded, how these things happen, like you can get into the realm of being labeled a conspiracy theorist or things like that, and I think that's where a bit
Yeah.
like in today's world it's sensitive because the moment you have a different opinion from the norm, you tend to get cast in that box, let's say. But I think more and more people are waking up to the truth, and I think Bitcoin is a big light that's helping them to do that as well.
Yeah, a very interesting thing there, I think, is that the like I view all politics as being left of the origo. So like there's
Okay.
a 0 point with no politics at all, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything state funded is just degrees of hell, more and more communism. Uh, which most people think is radical, but that's the only peaceful existence we can have. Like, don't aggress
Mm-hmm.
against other people. So,
Mm-hmm.
where am I going with this? Yeah, an interesting statistic today is that in almost all countries, the left have always been able to rely on young voters. So that usually it's the left side of the political aisle. All democracies form two blocks, or so at the end you have a choice between two different colors of the same thing. But they've always the left has always been able to rely on the vote of the youth, and today that's not true anymore. In almost all countries, the young voters vote more right leaning than left leaning, and that has never been the case before. So I think that's a sign of the times, along with like Trump's overwhelming victory here when he's got Elon Musk and RFK and RFK who comes from the Democrat side, and people like even Ron Paul, and people who are very liberty minded, and he won overwhelmingly over the legacy power structure dinosaurs. And I don't particularly like Trump, but I think this result of that election was a very good sign that people are waking up around the world, and they don't want the status quo to stay the same. They want something different. Right. And maybe I don't think you can get there through the ballot box alone. I think you need to take responsibility for your own actions and make your individual freedom a priority, and that's how we can get into a better world, really. The political system is a theater at the end of the day anyway. But at least it's a sign that people are becoming more and more freedom-minded, and I think the COVID measures, so-called COVID measures, the lockdowns and so on, and forced vax mandates and stuff, was if it wasn't, you're too brainwashed, but it should have been a warning, an alarm bell that like maybe these things that I believed in all my life aren't necessarily true. Maybe these people aren't my friends.
Yeah, and I think obviously I think also the internet has been a huge player in opening up information to the world and being able to see things for what they are, and not just have to listen to traditional media outlets tell you what things are, and actually be able to do research for yourself and understand different perspectives and understand different ways of thinking. And I think that's what I'm seeing more and more now as well. I think obviously also, Trump's campaign was he did not have the traditional media on his side, let's say. I think it was people who are, making decisions a bit more for their own, and like you said, are opening up and realizing that the way the world works today maybe isn't optimal, and that there is change that is needed.
And it reminds me of when the record industry died in the when Spotify or Napster was introduced and file sharing was introduced. Yeah. It's the same thing, but it's now true for everything. Since we got Bitcoin, we don't need any of the old institutions, and the old media houses, they are falling right now, and they just as Blockbuster Video and your local CD store was oblivious to what was going on when they or what's Fujifilm or Kodak. They keep doubling down on their old legacy ways, and they can't understand. They don't understand the new. They think that paywalls are a thing. They're not. Like, that's just the old world trying to interpret the internet through their lens. Paywalls is not how the internet works. We got SAPs now. Like, we donate when we appreciate something, but we expect to get it for free because it's intellectual property, and therefore it's not property at all. It's just information. It's free. It's actually free. You've just had this monopoly where you've been able to have your walled gardens and do stuff with your monopoly. That's why you have been able to pay. Like, if you look at movies and books and CDs and such, which were a big thing the last 100 years, like up until the internet, that was the anomaly, really, that you could make money off of copies of stuff. Like, now we're getting back to a world which is more like before the Industrial Revolution, really, because now you can't make money off of copies anymore. you know, and not even for stuff, because stuff is also falling. The prices of absolutely everything are falling. And especially if you denominate in Bitcoin, like everything on a free market, every price drops to its marginal cost of production over time. And it's beautiful, like because it means we have abundant resources, really, and everyone has access to them. All you need to do is stack some sats and don't touch them for 10 years, and you'll be able to afford anything. Like and it's all these tools are already here. So and look at your mobile phone. I'm in rant mode here. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Keep talking. This has this aspect of it. The flashlight.
Yeah.
That used to be a thing. You had to buy one. You don't need that anymore. You don't need the GPS. You don't need the watch. You don't need the calculator. You don't need the camera. You don't need access to the internet where all the world's books, movies, and music are. And all the other people in the world. Everyone is now available to contact for free on a video call. Like when I grew up, calling someone in Hawaii, it cost you a fucking fortune. And the audio quality was shit. And you had to wait for a lag of about like 2 minutes before you could get a reply. But it's insane. And these are the digital things. But what people don't realize is that everything else is following the same pattern. The only reason that we don't see it is because we have fiat money that keeps up the illusion that everything is getting more expensive. It isn't. It's getting free. It's just we're just like, blindfolded.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. And I think Jeff Booth, of course, has a great book also, The Price of Tomorrow, that highlights of this exact. And I know, of course, you're familiar with Jeff. And
Jeff, that's one of the first things that happened to me when I moved down to Spain, is Jeff came and paid me a visit. And I was
amazing.
Excited. And because we had been on a couple of pods together, and we have a certain mind meld. So that's why he wrote the foreword to my Everything Divided book. And we're still good friends. We're interviewing Jeff this week, by the way.
Okay,
So
amazing.
looking forward to that.
And he highlights exactly what you're saying, right? Because that's what I tell people when they ask me as well, is like, and Jeff highlights it really well in his book too, is like, the world around us through technology is getting cheaper and cheaper. We're getting more efficient. We're getting life around us, like you're saying, right, is getting more efficient and better. Yet the system that we're measuring it in, the fiat system, keeps propping up prices through inflation to make it seem like it's not getting more efficient, and yet people are still working harder to earn less, to be able to afford less. And so it really
requires the basic question I asked before, like, if you practice something, do you get better or worse at doing that?
Right.
That's it.
No, exactly. And so but it's still I mean, it's still difficult, and surprises me that because it's like we talked about, right? It's just a shift in the way of thinking, or maybe not even in the way of thinking, but even understanding the problem first to understand why the solution is so important.
It's admitting some uncomfortable truths to yourself. It's admitting that the emperor has no new clothes. It's still fake. Like it's no human being has the right to decide what another human being does with his time and efforts. That is always a bad guy. Like, and if we didn't have them, if people didn't do that to one another, we would all be way more efficient, and everything would be way cheaper and way better for everyone, everywhere, forever. It's as simple as that. And now we have this tool, and in Bitcoin you can see it. You can see the fucking turbo version of this, because for instance, you and I are both Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
We have all the incentives in the world to be absolutely awesome to one another if we ever meet in real life, or online for that matter. We're doing now. We're incentivized to have this conversation. We're incentivized to give this conversation to the world, because we are now all aligned. All of humanity is aligned now. We all benefit from everyone else doing well. And it's just amazing. And when you lean into that and you let it happen, and you like let go, another Jeff Booth thing, and like let go of your ego, just tap into that, try to be valuable to other people. It's insane how powerful that is and how much it can give back. And yeah.
And exactly as you said, and as you're highlighting here, we talked about quote unquote radical or different ways of thinking, but all you're talking about is non-aggression, is collaboration, is people's good and inherent qualities that they have, and letting that shine without intervention from unnecessary parties. And I think that's sometimes the message that gets lost for people when they hear maybe some of these conversations, is it sounds radical or it sounds different, but you're really preaching the things that should be expected and the things that should be normal
stating
between
the
humans.
obvious.
Right.
Yes, don't aggress against one another, like, and don't take people who do seriously. Like, because they're not worth it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so now we're entering, I think, a pretty interesting period with Bitcoin. We just saw, obviously, the election in the US have a pretty big impact on things, and it looks like there is a bit of a tide changing. So what are you kind of, what is your sentiment right now, and what do you kind of project in the coming months to years? Not necessarily in terms of price, but just in terms of overall adoption or Bitcoin in general.
I expect us to pretty soon be around 99,000 and try testing the 100K magic number thing.
Yeah.
And say, Michael, if you're watching, I'm very grateful for every other party I've been to at your house, and I'd love to come to the 100K one. I'm sure I can make it up to you somehow, someday. Maybe. Anyway, I think it depends on whether that bar is crossed or not, like whether that threshold is reached, whether we get above 100K or not. If we do, I think the rockets are lit, and we will go to absolutely insane levels. Like, I don't know how high, but it can go very ballistic in a very short time if we cross 100K, because I think that there will be headlines across the globe if that happens. Then again, we might not get above it for a long time, and then that might lead to some kind of retraction, and we might be in like 87 territory or something boring like that for a while. I don't think we'll ever see Bitcoin below 60 again. I think that's unlikely. These are price predictions. I hardly ever do them. It usually fires back at you, and you shouldn't have made them. Yeah. But it certainly is looking positive price wise, and I don't think like what people don't get is that this thing can and will go up forever if it just keeps functioning the way it does. So it doesn't require any outside force to go up forever. And fiat is going to zero. The dollar is going to zero. The dollar will hyperinflate at some point. There is no way that it can't, because the only way to keep the system afloat is to print more money. That's the only tool in the toolbox. Because the hit a politician or a Fed chairman would have to take if they didn't would be too big. So they have to keep printing. And the only way out for you, the individual, regardless of where or when you are, is just accept Bitcoin for your goods and services. Don't use exchanges. Accept Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin on an exchange. Buy it from a friend or exchange goods and services for it. That way you stay outside the system, and it becomes harder for all the aggressors of the world to try to attack you.
Yeah. And that being said, so that's good advice, I think, as well, to try to earn Bitcoin and not necessarily go through exchanges. But I know that we'll probably have a lot of new Bitcoiners entering the space in the coming months to years or whatever, wherever Bitcoin goes. And over time, everybody, I think, essentially will join Bitcoin. But for this time period right now, and this is also my final question to you, is what advice do you have for new people entering the space?
Yes. Read these books. Or this book. This was the same book. Anyway. Go to bitcoininfinity.com and
Yeah.
buy all my stuff and read all my
Yeah.
books, especially the
Yeah.
new one, because like if you like the thoughts you heard here, they're better explained in the book.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other stuff there too. And we have a pod called the Bitcoin Infinity Show where we have all these
Yeah.
interesting conversations. So go ahead and like and subscribe and brush your teeth and all that. And that was the shameless shill. The other advice I have for people is what I just said. Don't use the exchanges. Start accepting Bitcoin. I have an anecdote. I met Jason Mayer, the author of the Progressives Case for Bitcoin in Miami 2 years ago, and I asked him if he wanted to barter books, so like one of mine for one of yours. And at first he looked puzzled, and then he said, "Oh, barter. Okay, I get it. Are we allowed to do that?" And I realized after a while, it took a while for the sentence to sink in, but I realized that question is the essence of the problem with with so many with people trapped in this political way of thinking about the world. Why would anyone need permission to barter anything? And who are you going to ask for permission? And that's the thing. Permissionlessness is important. Like, I know a lot of people that are afraid of accepting Bitcoin and afraid of paying for something in Bitcoin. Well, stop being afraid. Just fucking do it. It's not going to hurt you, and you're not going to get thrown in jail for it. Like, accept it for what it is. Sure, some of us are going to be martyrs, and some of us are going to have a huge tax bill somewhere, and blah blah blah. But you can't stop a fucking tsunami. It's not going to happen. And this is money, and it's usable all across the globe. I paid for a shave in Bitcoin in Buenos Aires the other week. Like, it might not look like I paid for a shave a week ago, but still, at the end of the day, this is unstoppable. And it's whatever fear you have today is going to look ridiculous in 10 years from now, because you can't stop this train. That's so the sooner you get into it, the better. And study, for fuck's sake, like for your own sake. Do the work. Put in 100 hours. Like, start there. Put in 100 hours of Bitcoin only content with, like, try it. You'll like it, I promise.
Yeah. Awesome advice there. And of course, I'll also link all of the books and your podcasts and everything in the show notes for my listeners to check out. You have a few really good books that, again, highlight a lot of the fundamental concepts that we talked about here, and do it in a really nice way as well.
Yes, and we are re-releasing all the books with a slight edit for readability and new covers and stuff. Luke and I have our own publishing house now, and we're releasing other people's works as well, and translations and stuff. And
awesome.
We will starting January next year, we will publish all of my books for free on Noster.
Awesome.
Chapter by chapter, and we will also record a little video where we talk about each chapter of each book. And that will last once a week, and that will last the entire year, because there are more than 50 chapters in total. And after that, I think there will be some kind of quadrilogy volume, luxurious version of the thing.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's the plan anyway.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And Knut, thanks so much also for your time and all that you do for the Bitcoin space as well.
You too, Stephen, and Stefan. And we'll hope to see you in real life soon.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.